sorry. Is it okay to jump in on it too?
Sure.
We don't have to do it twice.
Okay. All these six.
One and done.
Too early.
I know, right? 16, 69.
16, 69.
We're just missing Fox 56.
Right.
They came late yesterday, so they'll probably be late today.
Yeah.
Ready whenever you are. Alright, so first things first. No, you're good. Just state your first name.
It's Karen.
Karen? Alright, Karen. So how are you feeling about the trial so far?
So far, yesterday was very interesting. I've never sat through a jury selection before. I think they could have gone into a little bit further questioning in regards to what people heard on the news, especially since I think there was 6 jurors maybe that already, found him guilty in their heads because of what they heard on the news. So I think the questioning should have gone a little bit deeper into that with some of the prospective jurors.
And do you know anything at all about what he's going to say in his opening statements?
I do not know what he's going to say. I do know that he is confident in his opening statement, and he does have it already, and he is prepared to go today.
How are you holding up? I imagine this is difficult.
Taking it day by day. That's all we can do. Just do what we have to do every single day and see what happens, and go from there, and defend our son, as we can.
How do you think he's holding up?
I'm sorry?
How do you think he's holding up?
I think he's holding up pretty well for everything that he's going through, for the lack of medical attention. I know when he was in Schuylkill County, he was in severe pain, and he has some issues with his teeth. They're not being fully addressed at the Lackawanna County Prison, so that is definitely an issue. But for what he's going through, being malnourished, he lost a lot of weight, and like I said, being in pain, he's holding up pretty well. I don't think a lot of people would be able to do what he's doing right now.
I remember in the past you had said he thinks he's being unfairly targeted. Can you elaborate on what you think you meant by that?
Oh, definitely. We've had 10 years worth of people threatening our lives, and until recently, that's the reason my husband's not here today, is because people are still till this day threatening us, threatening our animals, threatening our home. So he is staying home to protect our home. So that's why I'm here without him today. We have given information to the FBI, Secret Service, about these threats, and still nothing is being done. We have given them information in regards to the Schuylkill County case. Still nothing is being done. We call 911, and Mackie Police do not respond to 23 South Harrison Street rear. No matter what's going on, they don't respond. So, I find it upsetting that it took them 2 weeks to indict our son on these charges. But yet we have given them lots of evidence for other issues, and they haven't been addressed. So that's kind of upsetting to me in that aspect. So I don't feel that there's fair justice out there. It's okay for one person to do something and they get charged, and it's okay for other people to do the same thing and nothing happens to them. So.
Last question. Do you know why Shawn chose to represent himself and why he chose not to call any witnesses?
He chose to represent himself because of when he had the public defenders, Heidi Freese and Elliott Smith. They were not doing anything for Shawn's case. They told us in the beginning they had a game plan, told us what they were going to do. Months went by, none of that had been done. They constantly lied to him, lied to us. That's number one. Number two, there was a conflict of interest with the public defender's office from the Williamsport location with D. Tony Bird. At that time, when she represented Shawn and my husband, she had a direct relationship to Sarah Palin. Her father was appointed post-secondary education director in Alaska by Sarah Palin. She never disclosed that to them. So technically, the public defender's office never should have taken Shawn's case in the first place. So that was another reason to why he chose to represent himself.
Actually, I do have one more question. You might not be able to answer it, you might not know, but yesterday, Shawn was asking some of the jurors, did you feel personally threatened by the manhunt when he was on the run? Do you think that's going to be part of his defense?
I would imagine so. You know, I don't know for sure. We have not been able to talk deeply into his defense, only because when he calls home, they are recorded lines, so the district attorney can hear everything, so of course can plan it. Unfortunately, being a pro se attorney, you're not granted the same rights as if you had a lawyer. You know, he's not allowed the privilege of, you know, them all sitting down at coffee at lunchtime and, you know, working out strategies. Pro se attorneys are not afforded those same rights as someone who is represented by an attorney in the Bar Association.
What are your hopes for the trial moving forward?
My hopes for the trial, I hope that it comes out that the prosecution, the government that is prosecuting Shawn also failed Shawn. And what I mean by that is, yes, my husband turned him in, but that was done to protect Shawn's life. It took them 8 days to respond to that phone call. They never called, they came out with tanks, raided our home, busted up our home, killed our cat, injured other cats. That was their response to us trying to work for a peaceful, you know, solution to this problem. If it wasn't for that, when Shawn came home that Saturday night, he was coming home to surrender himself. But because he found out what had happened to our home and that his cat was dead because of their actions, that's what led up to this manhunt for him. And I'm sorry, just get a brain fart every once in a while. The other issue is, you know, my husband had called them when he was headed towards Kentucky, and it took them 8 days to respond to that as well. So my personal feelings is the government, the U.S. Marshals, the FBI, they knew where he was. They pinged his cell phone. They knew exactly where he were letting him go because they were hoping for, you know, something bigger to happen. They were hoping for a red flag, a massive shooter situation, and it didn't happen. You know, there's some people like Shawn who, you know, can spout their mouths off and have no intention. I mean, the threats against Trump, Trump was here on August 2nd, I believe it was. Shawn was in West Virginia or somewhere. So he totally clearly had no intention of harming the president, because if he did, he would have been in Wilkes-Barre, not in another state. So, like I said, I'm hoping that will come out in trial, that our government let this happen.
We only have 10 minutes.
All right.
Okay, bye guys.
This is Shawn Christy, Political Prisoner News, and this is Craig Christy, Shawn's dad, and just bringing you some of the current events of what's going to happen today. Actually, today starts with jury instructions, as a jury has been picked for Shawn's federal trial, and also not only just jury instructions, but opening statements. So we'll see how far they get into this today, as well as see how far they get into actually calling witnesses and everything like that, and how that goes. We'll have reports through the day. Live Facebooks will also be done by Karen Christie, and also Jessica Hoon Eckhart will be doing the live Facebooks up there and showing you who's interviewing, where the questions are coming from, and everything. So big day. Shawn did great yesterday. One of the things I wanted to really go over that he really did well. One of the questions he did vetting jurors was, he asked, he said, during the whole time I was out on my run, my wild journey, I guess, as Fox 56 is calling it, was anybody scared of me? And no. So this is part of the big problem that I think we've been trying to get across here. And it's one of the reasons I'm coming live this morning, because I want to kind of start showing the direction that really this needs to go. And the direction it really needs to go is this. Shawn was not a danger at any point. He was not a danger. He never hurt anybody. In fact, there were more people contacting me and contacting this news group saying, hey, you know what? If your son comes out here, he's going to have dinner, he's going to get a shower, he's got a fresh bed to sleep in. Oh, I got the grill outside and I left food by there. I left the camper open for him. I mean, and I did put a disclaimer out. I said, well, I don't want anybody getting in trouble for aiding and abetting. So please be careful what you say. But that's an overwhelming statement in itself, because people to this day still come up to us and tell us, my God, we put stuff out for him. He wasn't dangerous. And you know what's interesting? Of all the witnesses, the witness list came out officially yesterday. And of all the people that aren't going to be there, the one man who blew up Shawn Christy into being a serious, serious danger was U.S. Marshal Robert Clark, their fugitive recovery expert out of Philadelphia. Former Philadelphia narcotics officer. Well, maybe he visited the evidence room sometime, but if you look, if you really look at his former record, he is what we call glory boy. Robert Clark actually was a Philadelphia police officer, and when things started over in the Middle East right away, he took a deferment from that job just to go fight. He likes trouble. He's kind of like those firefighters that they don't get enough fires, so they go starting fires. Well, now you know why they don't have Robert Clark in, okay, as one of the witnesses, because he caused more of this trouble and tried to balloon this situation into something it wasn't. In fact, I hold him as one of the people personally responsible for their antics on the raid of this home. And we're going to go into that real quick in a little bit. But I wanted to cover that. That's real big. I think that's why they don't have him there, because he was really just trying to make this into quite a bigger event than what it really was. Look, they wanted a big capture. They wanted to shoot him. They wanted to kill him. If it wasn't for all you folks out there that joined with us, they probably would have. We probably wouldn't be having this conversation today, and Shawn would be 6 foot in the ground. They play dirty, sports fans. I hate to say it, but you know what? They can't even police their own. And not all law enforcement is bad. Trust me, there's a lot of good folks in law enforcement, but they can't really police themselves too well. And well, the DOJ, that's just another matter. And that's what we're going to get into next. One of the things that Francis Sempa, the prosecuting assistant U.S. attorney, put in his trial brief was, of course, he put in that I basically called the Secret Service when I'd seen what Shawn had posted on Facebook. Okay? I spoke with a Secret Service out of the Philadelphia office, a Secret Service agent named Maurice Kraft. And this was interesting because when I called and I spoke to Agent Kraft, first of all, he didn't give me his real name. He gave me a name of a Nintendo toy or a character or something. I can't even remember what it was. He's a real joker, he is. Basically, he told me on the phone. He actually said in his words, and I remember the conversation, he said, oh, he doesn't really sound like a threat. Well, you know what? This is where it gets real interesting, sports fans, okay? Think about this. I called approximately 10:59 a.m. on June 12th. I called the Secret Service, the U.S. Capitol Police. I called the Northampton County District Attorney's Office, which put me through to the Sheriff's Office, and same with Schuylkill County, okay? Although they didn't put me through to the Sheriff's Department. They just never returned my calls, much like law enforcement here in Schuylkill County. What was really interesting was this. That was June 12th, 10:59 a.m. The raid on this house occurred around 7 o'clock in the morning, June 20th, 2018, 8 days. 8 days. No one contacted me. Nobody called me back. You know, I have to say something. You know, when Donald Trump, President Donald Trump now, was elected our president, you know, I'm a Reagan conservative. I'm not a big Trump fan, but I'd rather have Trump than the alternatives. And I have to say, most honestly, that this man has to be in fear of his life all the time. Just from the protection he gets from his own federal government. And there's, you know, I remember when he was elected, one of the big things was he wanted his security to protect him on his inside circle. He did not trust the Secret Service. And you know what? If Shawn proved anything out of this matter, he proved that Donald Trump's life is in danger. And you know who he's in danger from the most? The United States government, the Department of Justice, the same department that's trying right now to impeach him and has just had this kind of lynch mob, one thing after the other, where they really don't have any proof, but they're just trying to ruin his name in the press. This is unbelievable. And I remember President Trump actually saying that he did not trust the United States Secret Service with his life or his family's life. And now I can see why. Secret Service Special Agent Maurice Kraft is one example, okay? Probably most likely a liberal background. And really didn't care about the president's life too much. But you know what's really concerning about this? Shawn had no intention to ever hurt Donald Trump. In fact, he actually supported Donald Trump. His whole thing, we all know this by now, was to get attention to the local corruption that was happening here. Okay? But you know what concerns me the most with President Trump? Is this Department of Justice, which I tell you what, if there's any bit of a swamp in this country that needs to be cleaned out, there it is. Because did the Department of Justice, did the United States Secret Service, did the FBI, who has to follow the Department of Justice's orders, did they want Donald Trump dead? 8 days. 8 days. You know what's funny? I called at 10:59 a.m. June 12th. And then we had a black, I believe it's a MD-10 copter come over. And I actually shared a post to Shawn's Facebook. And I said, well, now the manhunt begins. I just turned in Shawn Christy. And I put that out. That was on his Facebook, my Facebook, and everything else. And yeah, so for 8 days. You know what I think? I think they were hoping he would go to Washington, D.C. I think that's why they gave him so much time. And you know what? They knew where he was. He had his cell phone on him. So they knew every second of the way where he was. And they said, well, when they came in with the raid here on the Schuylkill County search warrant, we got a pen register from Northampton County. That was State Trooper Andrew Watkins said that. So they could see his locations where he'd been by his phone, okay? Because they track where you go with your phone. All the telecommunication companies do that. Well, you know the interesting thing about that, which really got me and started to think about it. We know now that Trooper Watkins lied, never got that pen register warrant. That I already checked that with Northampton County. Nikanovig, or Watkins is also a sworn deputy marshal and works with Nikanovig with the U.S. Marshals out of Allentown for the Eastern District Fugitive Recovery. So you know, I guess Nikanovig never checked to see if Andrew Watkins was lying either. But you know what's amazing to me? Everybody sat for 8 days. How much does the Department of Justice want President Donald Trump dead? How much? 8 days. 8 days from McAdoo to get to Washington, D.C. Wow. And then it even got better. Because once they started putting all this in the news, once they started saying, once U.S. Marshal Robert Clark, in his broken English, started saying how much of a threat that Shawn Christy was. He might be armed, he might be dangerous. He's very dangerous. Yeah, well, guess what? He was so dangerous that while he was running around here, and he apparently made threats against Donald Trump, well, you know what? Donald Trump decided to come to Pennsylvania. Now, you know what's interesting about that? Why would the Secret Service let Donald Trump come to Pennsylvania if there's somebody running on the loose, a dangerous fugitive who might be armed? Why would they let him come to Pennsylvania? And the interesting thing was, Donald Trump was supposed to come to Harrisburg here, and they rerouted him, and he ended up in Wilkes-Barre. Well, that's funny because that's where they thought Shawn was. They thought Shawn was in that kind of Luzerne County area, okay? Shawn was smart enough to bug out the day before and ended up, all the police reports say, including the police out of Nitro, West Virginia, that he was already down there. So the question you have to ask is, was this a convenient, possible way that the DOJ thought, you know what? Let's just get Trump out of the way. We'll never be able to impeach him. We'll never really get him into court on any crimes. But you know what? Hopefully this Shawn Christy is enough of a psychopath to go down and kill him. So we'll just open the door and let it go for 8 days. And you know what happened? When it wasn't gelling and it wasn't going, and they still were getting pings from his phone that he was out in the strip mines out here and he really wasn't going anywhere. Well, then they came up with the idea, oh, okay, we'll get the raid, okay? And I'll tell you the reason why they came in, okay? Like Crash Up Derby and went way above and beyond. And they know why. It was to draw Shawn out of the woods. It was to play his love for family, his love for his animals here, our pets, our fur babies. That's what they were playing. That's why they flew a helicopter for an hour over McAdoo and over our house. That's why they came in with everything they had. That's why they came in and smashed the house and killed a cat and injured 2 others and smashed up the house. They made the big show. And you know why? They wanted to draw Shawn Christy out. For once again, they wanted to play him on the love of his family, the love of his home, which he has great love for, as you've seen in the letters he wrote when he was on the run in fear of his life. Now you can know why he's in fear of his life. They wanted him to come out of the woods so they could have a confrontation and kill him. He was just smart enough not to do that. But he did come back a week later. And he came in, he wanted to surrender himself. And you know, you people who saw the Fox 56 interview, I did say, I wish I would have held him here, because I'll tell you what, after this government did what they did to this family and this home, after I have worked time and time again with the U.S. government and other governments, local, county, state, you know what? After all this, I'm just infuriated. I mean, I can't believe that the United States Secret Service, with a threat against Donald Trump, would turn around and wait 8 days. You know, the funny thing is, if that raid never happened and they knew where he was just in the woods. They were pinging his phone. Like he did a week after the raid, he came home. You know what he was worried about most? His 18-year-old cat, Arrow. Because Arrow was old. And Arrow wasn't in the best of health. And he lived on the kitchen table. And that's the exact place that the U.S. Marshals attacked. One of the exact places was the kitchen. They even threw our refrigerator in the middle of the floor for no reason at all. And now I know why. It was to put Shawn's cat into shock. And that's why Shawn Christy left here and went on a rampage, because the government wanted him to. That's your United States government, people, and they're not going to get out of this one, not as long as I live. Oh, no. They caused this on purpose. And I'll tell you what's really sad, what's really, really sad is the fact that now, today, the criminals are on the wrong side of the courtroom. Shawn should be prosecuting them, because those individuals in there knew everything that happened, knew he wasn't a threat. And just like when I gave the information about what happened during the chase, I was watching Shawn, what states he was, where he was, this and that. I could tell you right then he was going to Dakota Myers. Okay? Gave him 5 days heads up. And they just couldn't catch him at the Dakota Myers place. Just couldn't catch him. Well, you know why there's no real big charges coming out of there? Well, because Dakota Meyer and DM Tactical kind of was trying to set him up. And it's so embarrassing and pathetic, the job that Dakota Myers DM Tactical did, that the government's scared to put any charges for down there, because you know what? It's going to show that there was a lot of interference and there was a lot of entrapment. So, but we'll hear from Mr. Myers. He'll probably be the last witness to speak, and that'll be interesting. Like I said, all our sources were right. He was in the area the whole time. And he's an interesting fake war hero. Read my post about that from, I think it's military.com. They also have another article, if you want to look it up, about his ex-wife Bristol saying he's a fake war hero. He is. The government doesn't support his book or his story. Neither does the U.S. Army. They're the experts. I would listen to them. But another thing, one more thing I want to go through, and then I'm going to kind of cut this off because it's going to be a big day. One of the things I want to talk about is a lot of people are asking me why I'm not there right now. Okay, 2 reasons. My health is a little under the weather right now. So this is very hard for me to be able to do something sustained through a whole day, and that's a long day up there. So we're still taking this day by day. The other thing is we've had problems here. We have no protection from law enforcement here. McAdoo police do not protect us. They do not follow through. They do not do investigations. Well, I can't say all of them. There's one officer that tries, but he's always blocked by the police chief here, Jeffrey Wainwright. We get no state police protection whatsoever. We've had some harassment here. It's pointless to try to report it at this point, but powers to be felt, that's me and Karen, felt it was best that we divide our resources and that I watch the home. There has been some innuendo threats against killing our cats and some other harassment going on. I don't want to go too much into that. But please stay tuned all through the day. We'll be putting up updates, live Facebooks the girls will be doing up from Scranton. Shawn's been kicking ass. He kicked ass in Schuylkill County and really showed that the mayor acted illegally and that the cop lied, and that's still on the table here in McAdoo. And today he launches into his federal career as a pro se attorney. So a lot of prayers for him, a lot of prayers for our team, and love all of you. Keep following. I'll give updates when I can. Political prisoner news, the #1 news that law enforcement follows to get the real truth. Thanks, everybody. Much love. Try this again. I'm Craig Christy with Shawn Christy, Political Prisoner News. And we have some updates from the courthouse, the Scranton Courthouse, on the trial right now that Shawn is being tried with. Let's see. I erased the last broadcast. I just had a call come in, so I'm going to redo all this real quick. Leo Sekurta, he was the Schuylkill County detective who and now he's with the AG's office. He was a witness. Sean cross-examined him, basically said no to everything. And the only great interest of that was that Sekurta worked under Michael Opaque. And Michael Opaque was told by two Court of Common Pleas judges here in Schuylkill County he can have nothing to do with anything with Shawn, that he was his former public defender. So I would find the validity of any testimony of Leo Sekurta to be invalid, because he works for the office of Michael Opaque, Shawn's former public defender, now district attorney. The next one was Special Agent Alan Jones from the Allentown FBI, who is the one who got the criminal complaints on Shawn. And from what I understand, the information was passed from the presidential threats from the Secret Service to Alan Jones. Actually, Jones is doing the charging there, not the service. And that was just a kind of a convenience thing. It was pretty interesting. Jones took the stand. Shawn really interrogated him quite heavily, from what I hear. He was trying to push all the faults on everything that went wrong with the search warrant and everything else, and anything that went wrong, trying to push that on the U.S. Marshals. So that was very interesting. His demeanor was extremely agitated. They said his face kept getting red and he kept getting upset. Shawn would try to ask him questions, and he would try to answer the same thing and say, "Well, I was too busy trying to catch a fugitive that threatened President Trump." Well, that's interesting, Agent Jones, because you know what? Maybe you're the one that paved the path so Shawn could get down to Washington, D.C. and try to kill the president. 8 days. 8 days. I'm sure President Trump would like to hear about Alan Jones. Yeah. Wow. I'll tell you what, that amazes me. This was really interesting. Shawn asked if Alan Jones made any promises to me or Karen during the time of we were working with the FBI, and Shawn was on the run. This was Alan Jones's response, and I really want you to listen carefully. Alan Jones said this: "The only thing I promised is that if you, Shawn, would turn himself into Alan Jones, if he would turn into Alan Jones, he would not be harmed if he complied with his demands." Well, it's kind of, I would say, a little innuendo of a threat. If he complied with his demands, he would not be harmed. Well, first of all, if somebody would turn themselves into somebody, I'm sure they would be complying with anything they said. They're in the act of surrendering. So we'll see more of Alan Jones's personality. I really think it's time to do a special on Alan Jones here, and really get to the meat of this, and really focus a good couple posts and maybe a live Facebook biography with this gentleman, because this gentleman just interests me more and more. Finally, this was interesting too. Going back in history, Shawn asked him about David Tkach. We've posted information from David Tkach. He was a state trooper with actually the Pennsylvania Bureau of Investigation, and he was a task force officer with the Allentown FBI. Alan Jones basically said he did not talk to David Tkach. It's interesting. They work in the same office. They did. I know Tkach is retired now. And he did not want to concern David Tkach with all this, and accused us. He said he told Shawn that your family incessantly harassed David Tkach. Really? Well, let's talk about who David Tkach is. He was a task force officer with the Allentown FBI. He's also a state trooper here in Pennsylvania. Real interesting. He came over on June 26th, 2009, approximately 6:30 at night. Shawn was 17 years old. And this was just a couple months after the texting. And Dave brought over 130 emails that supposedly that Shawn had sent to the governor's office. And he let Shawn see him. Shawn looked at him and Shawn said, they're cut and paste. Most of these things are cut and paste. I didn't really say a lot of this stuff. And the interesting thing, that was at the time that the Secret Service actually turned around and said, we'd like, when Shawn was 17, we'd like you to get him, we're requesting you get him a psychological evaluation. We had no problem with that. We were young in this. We didn't know all the corruption that was going on. But you know what was interesting? The FBI would not let us have those 130 emails. I requested them. I said, I said to him that night, I said, Trooper Tkach, I said, you know what? He's going for a psychological evaluation with Virginia Share. Secret Service requested. So can we please have those so we can take those along? The FBI didn't want those getting out. And of course, there's the texting between December, or we call it sexting, between December 2008 all the way up into April 2009. So when we look at all these facts, we can see how David Tkach was so interlinked. And let us not forget, with a protective order, the first one that Sarah Palin got against Shawn back in 2010, what was really interesting was the fact that with that protective order, David Tkach, the task force officer with the Allentown FBI, was sending information to Kristen Cole, who also got a protective order against Shawn. So our FBI and our state troopers were working with former Governor Sarah Palin and her best friend, Kristen Cole, to get them information to get protective orders against Shawn. Should that tell you a lot of what's really going on? So that's pretty much how bad this situation is. They don't want to bring up Tkach, and you know what? Why didn't they want to concern themselves with it? If this goes all the way back to 2009, when they're saying Shawn made threats, and then the Secret Service, according to the email from Special Agent Kenneth Beauchamp out of the Philadelphia Secret Service office, said, oh, he was a minor. We got rid of everything after 120 days. Yeah, they did. They got rid of the text. They got rid of the 130 emails that Alaska FBI probably chopped and pasted. Nobody wants to talk about it. Ann Kirkland Nakusa, the FBI agent out of Allentown, and nobody wants to talk about David Tkach. But I want to talk about Alan Jones, and I'm going to finish up real quick with this. Let me tell you about Alan Jones, okay? Alan Jones, for years, has not liked me because I have called their office multiple times, and he always seems to answer the phone. And his favorite saying to me is, oh, Christy, we know about you. And you know what? That's how unprofessional this oaf really is, okay? One time, he even told me, he said, why don't you get your fat ass and go get an attorney? Okay? You can see the real professionalism of the FBI here. He's a real shining star for them, okay? Well, guess who I talked to the day that Shawn had the encounter with McAdoo Mayor Stephen Hawley, the former mayor. March 15, 2017, I called 911 when Shawn came home with a split lip, marks around his neck, all wobbling, missing hat, missing walking stick. and found out he got attacked, assaulted, aggravated assaulted by the mayor, the former mayor of McAdoo. I called the FBI for emergency assistance, and guess who picked up the phone? Alan Jones. And you know what he said? He said, "Oh, Christy, we know about you," and hung up. Okay? Guess what? The day of the raid, guess who the agent in charge was out here? You got it, Alan Jones. Okay? Stood in my living room with his boss to the right side of me. I was standing by the old wood stove. Alan Jones was standing to the left in the middle of the room. And I was questioning him. I said, I put 40 reports in with the FBI over the years. He goes, "What report? We don't know about no reports. This, that, no reports. I don't know about anything. We never got nothing." And you know what? I said, "Well, I have a document." And I said, "Here's the other thing." I said, "You're in charge today?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm the agent in charge." He said, "We know about you, Christy." Thank you. Because that's all documented. And you know what? I really think that this guy, Alan Jones, is part of what's going on. And this is what I think would happen with that search warrant. This is the reason why the FBI should move people around. Every couple of years, they should move their agents. See, Jones is an old timer here, okay? He works this area, okay? And it just so happens that this area, McAdoo, Klein Township, all this area is heavy in corruption. Jones's backyard. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? And you know what? I have a feeling that it was Jones who told State Trooper Andrew Watkins to lie about a pen register. That's my guess. And you want to know my connections with that? Let me tell you about Alan Jones, okay? Alan Jones lives in Bangor, PA. Shawn's first charges 2 days before the McAdoo mayor incident were at a Bangor, PA for a fight with the tax company. Okay? Frederick J. Lahowski worked down in the Northampton area, Bangor, Bethlehem, and all that. He did the circuit for 20-some years with the different forces as they fired him and kicked him out of there. And he finally was blackballed. He's from down that area. So is Trooper Watkins, Andrew Watkins. He started his career with Lahowski in the Bethlehem Barracks, M Troop. Okay? And I was darn right because it came out in Discovery. Trooper Watkins, okay, is also a task force officer with the U.S. Marshals under Nick Hanavig. And you know what's really enjoyable about that? Andrew Watkins is stationed in a barracks down, and you guessed it, Northampton. Here we go. There you go. And he is part of the luncheon club every day at the Allentown Federal Building with Alan Jones, Nick Hanavig. Oh, yeah. So they knew what they were doing. They knew what they were doing. And I would put Alan Jones as one of the lead guys for wanting Shawn to really make a run at the president and to go try to kill the president. I would put that on Alan Jones. I would definitely put it on him. Because I think Alan Jones has been working a case on Shawn for 10 years. And I've never been able to prove it. But I think he's the main guy. And you know what's funny? When I was arrested with Shawn in the Allentown Federal Building in 2011, August 18th, they blacked out who arrested us and just had FBI. You want to uncover that name? I bet you it's Alan Jones. Yes, sirree, Bob. Alan Jones covering up for the corruption around here. We've had everything from government corruption, whorehouses that the local and state police are protecting, and corruption in the courthouses. Right. That's what's interesting to me. And a final note, I found it interesting they brought in one of the clerk of courts from Schuylkill County, just to prove that apparently Shawn was charged with the charges he was. She didn't bring an update, of course, that Shawn wiped out most of those charges. And the interesting thing was that she works for Maria Casey. the clerk of courts now. And it just so happens that Maria Casey bragged in a newspaper article, I believe it was Republican Herald, about working with Alan Jones to actually get the old clerk of courts indicted. You know what's interesting about that? Makes you wonder if they set them up together. Makes you wonder about Alan Jones's relationship with Maria Casey. Makes you wonder, how we have a sewer department here that's $7 million in the plus when there's 1,500 people who live in McAdoo pay $50 a month. How's that happen? I guess nobody wants to look into it. Basically, Alan Jones was supposed to be looking into it with another agent that was formerly with Allentown, Tony Cavallo, and apparently nothing's ever been done. So makes you wonder why all this corruption runs wild. But Alan Jones is a piece of work, and I don't trust him. I don't trust him a bit. And if anything, I would say that he helped up with the cover up here in McAdoo because, last thing here, there's a detective with the Schuylkill County District Attorney's Office named Marty Heckman, who Jones has admitted he's real good friends with. Marty Heckman's the one that went down, apparently sent by the former DA, Christine Holman, to see what was going on with the videotapes and all the records in McAdoo. And two camera loads of film disappeared. May I say more? All right, well, that's enough for now. Basically, we will try to get back with updates. They'll be eating lunch for a while, so I guess around 2 o'clock they'll be going back. And we'll be going from there. This is Craig Christy with Shawn Christy Political Prisoner News. Thanks for watching. Much love. This is Craig Christy with Shawn Christy Political Prisoner News. Just giving you an update. They just had a 10-minute recess during the trial. Opening statements were given, and Shawn's opening statement was pretty good. He pretty much is going after the government corruption involved in his chase and his capture, and also the fear for his life. So he's challenging the validity of the charges against him. And he had a good opening statement, and he apparently they've seen a couple witnesses now. One was a Stacy Stockham, I think her name is, from Schuylkill County Clerk of Courts. She came out and read at the time the charges against Shawn from Schuylkill County when a bench warrant was put out for his arrest here. The interesting thing was she did not clarify that the charges were adjudicated. So they're trying to run on aggravated assault charges that exist no longer. That was kind of a dirty pool. The next person was, excuse me, that's just my oven going off. I got some fish cooking. The next person that hit the witness stand was Maurice Kratz. He's the Secret Service agent who I spoke with, the one that gave me the Nintendo name. So he basically just said he took the call and they handed it off to other people. That's interesting because he was out here the day of the raid, so I'll put pictures of him out there. There was also another Secret Service agent, Mike Armstrong. He was pretty much interviewed by Shawn about how the threats were classified, how were they actually legitimate? And very good questions by Shawn. Once again, the government's going to have a very, very hard uphill battle proving that Shawn was the danger that he was to the public, especially after the Schuylkill County trial. Next up, I believe, I got this from Karen. Karen actually called me during break. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch hands here real quick because I want to make sure I'm getting all this Um, let's see. Fran Sempa, I guess he got the title from Fox News messed up last night. Fox 56 had this special on um, uh, uh, Sean's wild journey. I guess uh, Fran Sempa's a little off this morning. He's calling it Sean's wild odyssey. So, it's almost okay. I'll go get my tinfoil hat. It's almost like he's trying to work with Fox News. It's almost like they kind of coordinate the news, but you people out there who know what's really going on, this does happen. So, pretty much the only other thing is Sean's challenging the validity of the evidence and the chain of evidence because a lot of the evidence broke the evidence chain. So Sean is basically what we do in with firewood and stuff like that, and working firewood. If you get a big stump, you start kind of carving it out around the outside, chopping bits off of it till you get to the center. And I think that's what he's looking to do. He's looking to try to take all this evidence they have against him, and a lot of it is really hearsay evidence, and he's chopping away at it. He's already objected to the government even putting state charges in because he said many of the state charges aren't adjudicated yet, so they're hearsay. And that's a problem. So I will get back to everybody when I hear another update. Apparently it was a 10-minute break, and I guess apparently they're not. Judge Mariani's not too big on eating lunch because he just likes to sit up there. So I guess if anybody wants to lose weight, they could go during the week and sit in on this trial because once you're in the courtroom, you can't go out. So if you're looking to kind of lose a couple pounds, well, that's the place to do it. So this is Craig Christy with Shawn Christy, Political Prisoner News, and I will be back with any updates. Thanks for listening. Much love.